Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is INX Prime Live. Remember, we are on your screens every single Monday to Friday between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. Now, the Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo have launched the Environmental Enforcement Unit, which was previously known as the Park Rangers. Now, this team consists of about 37 rangers as well as 15 interns from the South African Biodiversity Institute, and their job is purely to ensure safety and security now in the parks as well as the zoo. So they will work to ensure that city parks are accessible and welcoming to all, but away from that, more specifically for women who often don't feel safe in these spaces. Now, this initiative is part of the Johannesburg City Parks Women's Month campaign. And to find out more about it, we are joined by Jenny Moodley, who is the spokesperson for Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo. And she does actually join me now to elaborate. Good evening, Jenny, and thank you for joining us here at INX Prime Live.
Thank you so much for hosting Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo. I'll make doubly sure. Am I good in terms of my screen?
Yeah, you are good. Sorry, there was a bit of movement, but I think you are good to go now. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Okay, good.
But first of all, this is a wonderful initiative, and I'm sure it will go a long way in encouraging women to feel safe in our beautiful parks, without a doubt. I just wanted to know, in terms of this initiative, is it something that you guys have been doing for the last few years, or is it the first time it's happening for Women's Month?
No, absolutely not. It's part of Johannesburg City Parks' ongoing programs in terms of ensuring that all our visitors, particularly our children, particularly women, are safe in our spaces, that they get to utilize these spaces without any fear. And for us, ensuring that there's an added element of safety and security ensures that they have a pleasurable, safe, vibrant experience in city parks as facilities. So over time, we've always had the park rangers, except we've now brought in the added complement of the 15 interns from the South African National Biodiversity Institute. So those are the department that takes care of all the botanic gardens in the country. And we will complement that with, of course, random patrols by the Joburg Metro Police Department. And thankfully, the South African Police Services, their units are also very visible in parks that are well frequented. For us, it's about encouraging women to come out in their numbers to keep healthy and to be safe.
Yeah, we're very excited for the Environmental Enforcement Unit, without a doubt. And then, I just want to go back to, safety in South Africa. And the ongoing concerns over park safety is not unique to South Africa alone. However, we do have quite a high crime rate. Women are 3 times more likely than men to feel unsafe in parks during the day. And obviously that percentage escalates and it gets a lot worse at night as well. How will the newly launched EEU, or Environmental Enforcement Unit, actually address those safety concerns?
Yes, I think first and foremost is Joburg's parks, and for many parks in the country, we are open from 6 a.m. in the morning until sunset, 6 p.m. in the afternoon. So in terms of all our research at our disposal, we find that even if parks were made accessible after hours, women generally will steer clear after hours from these public spaces. And that's due to a number of reasons. We also have trained our park rangers. This is the whole program that we've, for lack of a better word, retrained the park rangers to ensure that they've got a better offering. So in terms of the park ranger offering, they still unfortunately cannot enforce the bylaws. So they will continue to have a huge dependency on the Joburg Metro Police Department. But they are very much a deterrent. We find that they can deter opportunistic crime. Very often, the reports that come through, as much as it's isolated and random, we find that it's opportunistic in its nature. So somebody using a park as a thoroughfare would possibly get mugged for their cell phone. A woman might be harassed verbally because she's using a park alone or with just 2 women. And so the park rangers will basically not, bear in mind we have 2,173 parks, and these are 37 park rangers. So yes, they're not going to be in all these parks throughout the time. But what we want to see is just a very, very amplified message that our parks are safer. We want you to come out. We want you to come out with your friends and family. We know that women generally are gatekeepers. They are the decision makers when it comes to where we socialize, how we keep healthy and fit, in terms of our making sure spaces are clean and so on. So women play such a critical role in parks, and I think that's what we want to see. We want to see more women in our facilities. We want to see more children. We want to basically ensure that men also, especially during the month of August, we all take a little bit of introspection, and we understand that we need to respect women utilizing public open spaces. We need to afford them their privacy. Quite often, we've had reports that they are together in a group and they're being harassed and so on. So our responsibility is firstly from an education, to offer assistance, to provide emergency numbers, to ensure that the private security that are deployed in some of these facilities are also responsive in terms of addressing women's concerns. So yes, it's a holistic response to women saying to us, we are not feeling safe alone in a public facility.
I'm so happy that you guys took this initiative. But also away from, just being visible in these parks, what are some of the other duties of the EEU?
Yes, the EEU is the Environmental Enforcement Unit. So they've been trained and very intensively. They spent some days at the Kruger National Park and went through quite an extensive training program. So they would be able to also report alien invasive plants. They would report environmental concerns, pollution levels in your water bodies. They would be able to theft of trees, vandalism in parks, vandalism of public infrastructure in parks. So they've got an enforcement responsibility. However, again, I have to reinforce and that our park rangers do not have the authority to make any arrests. They can act as a deterrent. They can call out JMPD. They can call out the South African Police Services, but they will report transgressions and they will take it all the way to the court process. Because what we find, there's a gap in terms of walking the talk when we talk enforcement. We're finding very often we come across a transgressor, for example, has felled a street tree, and we then need to go to the police station, register that case, but then it enters the legal system. And unfortunately, we don't have the authority to process that whole transgression and hold the transgressor accountable. So the rangers then will help Johannesburg City Parks in making sure that that process is managed. But more importantly, we want to use our rangers to send a zero tolerance message to transgressions when it comes to public open spaces in the city. We are finding very often that many residents plead ignorance when it comes to illegal tree felling or the removal of plant material or utilizing a public space without any permits. We know that, the warmer the months go, the more exciting our parks become. And we want to offer residents an enjoyable, pleasurable experience. And so for us, it's how do we go about that, capitalizing on this resource that's well trained and will be able to act as park ambassadors for the city of Joburg.
No, that's brilliant. And I mean, it is a collaborative effort between, like you did mention, the authorities, the SAPS, as well as your EEU individuals. And I think it's so great to see the 15 interns as well. It's nice to see a progressive nature where you are actually thinking about sustainability and increasing the numbers as well. Also allowing a lot of young people to come into the space to be able to, play in the space for a long period of time. I just want to touch on capacity though, right? So we know that Johannesburg is famously known as the city inside a park, right? And there's about, 2,000 parks in Johannesburg and in South Africa. Will the 35 EEU rangers plus those 15 interns be enough to cover all of the regions? Or do you think it's still not going to be enough in terms of capacity?
Yes, unfortunately, we have some of the most sprawling spaces when it comes to parkland across the globe. You go through to some cities, they don't have the luxury of space that we have in the city of Joburg. We also, as you know, have got the biggest man-made forest in terms of satellite images that have indicated that we've got one of the most greenest urban cities in the world made by the residents. And so for us, the 37 park rangers, unfortunately, will not be able to patrol these 2,173 parks. Like I said, some of them stretch over 100 rugby fields.
Yeah.
If you look at, Zoo Lake, Florida Lake, some of those bigger parks in Tukosa Park in Soweto and so on. So for us, we have got a secondary partnership with the resident associations, particularly in affluent areas. So we would work with your CAPS and your ADT security and so on, and they would be our eyes and our ears. And our park rangers then will have access to Joburg Metro Police Department in terms of responsiveness and response units. So yes, there's still a huge dependency on residents to play their part. I think, as much as the responsibility is with the city of Joburg to ensure that visitors feel safe and are protected in our spaces, there's also a dependency on individuals taking responsibility for children, particularly using parks. Now, we find that in your more developed areas, these spaces are underutilized, but when it comes to your pocket parks in your areas, like your Yeovils, your Soweto, Alexandra, Lenasia, and so on, there are more children playing unsupervised. And while that is very worrying for us as city parks and the custodians of parks, we also realize that parks are generally very safe. There's this perception that drives some groups from steering clear from parks, but I can assure you that based on the number of incidents that we receive, that parks are generally very safe. And so for us, it's about how do we bring the children out, how do we bring the women out, and complemented by the park rangers, how do we increase a perception of safer parks for your own well-being, for the well-being of families in the city of Joburg.
No, Jenny, thank you so much again for sharing all this very important information with us. And we know that obviously it is a long weekend, and we want to wish you also an amazing Women's Day. And I hope that you do have a blessed day as well. But just in closing though, before we do let you go, really quickly, is there any safety tips during this Women's Month that you can share to all of the women out there when it comes to, interacting or whatever it might be in the parks and zoos as well?
Yes, absolutely. So I say always protect children. Ensure that when you are visiting a public open space, that you leave your valuables at home, that where possible, frequent a park in groups. There's always a great camaraderie when you're with your friends and families and so on. So come out in your numbers, but bring along your friends. Steer clear from areas that are not that is not visible. We find that quite often you've got massive trees and so on, and there's huge shrubs and so on. So make sure that your sight of line is visible. Stay on the main pathways, and as always, enjoy yourselves, but steer clear from substance, any bringing in your any alcohol and so on into the parks. And where possible, ensure that you leave the park clean for the next users. So for us, we too would like to wish the women in Johannesburg and of course across the country and all your viewers, we'd like to wish them a happy Women's Day for tomorrow. And we say, come out in your numbers, enjoy these public amenities. It's for you to use. And we would like to see more women in our facilities going forward.
No, I love that, Jenny. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on INX Prime Live.
It is our pleasure.
Perfect. Guys, that is Jenny Moodley, who is the spokesperson for the Johannesburg City Parks and Zoo, just sharing with us some of the initiatives that they do have for Women's Month and the fact that they are making it safer so that more women can come out in their numbers and make use of the amazing services and aspects of the zoo as well as the park that is available to them on a daily basis. Now, on that note, we are going to take a quick ad break. We'll come right back.